Welcome. All right, if you're working your way through the CFA curriculum, you know derivatives can feel like a real beast, but we're going to tame it. Today, we're cracking the code on a huge piece of it, pricing and valuing forward commitments, straight out of reading 37.
When you boil it all down, that's really the question we're asking. A forward commitment is just a promise, right? A promise to do something in the future. So how in the world do you put a price tag on that promise today?
And that right there is the most important word on the screen. Obligation. This isn't an option where you get to decide later. Nope. This is a binding contract. We're talking forwards, futures, swaps. They all lock you into a transaction down the road. It's happening.
So here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll get our heads around the big idea, the no-arbitrage principle. Then we'll clear up something that trips up so many people, the difference between pricing and valuing. After that, we'll apply what we've learned to forwards and swaps, and we'll wrap it all up with a blueprint for your exam. Sound good? Let's go.
Okay, let's dive right in. And I want you to really focus here, because if you get this one concept, I promise you everything else in derivatives just clicks into place. This is the absolute golden rule.
The whole system, all of finance really, is built on this one simple idea. The law of one price. It just means that if two things are going to pay you the exact same amount of money in the future, they have to cost the same amount today. They just have to. Because if they don't, someone could buy the cheap one, sell the expensive one, and make a risk-free profit. That's arbitrage, and in an efficient market, those opportunities get wiped out in a flash.
And look, don't just take my word for it. The curriculum tells you this point blank. The entire reason we have these pricing models is to find the one price that makes it impossible for anyone to get a free lunch. We are pricing these things specifically to prevent arbitrage.
So how do we find that magic price? We use a little thought experiment called a cash and carry arbitrage. Just imagine you wanted to create a synthetic forward contract. You could borrow some money today, use it to buy the asset, and then just hold it. Your total outlay in the future would be what you paid for the asset plus all the interest on your loan, right? Well, that little homemade strategy perfectly replicates the forward contract, so the forward price has to equal your total cost. If it doesn't, boom, arbitrage.
All right, building right on top of that no-arbitrage foundation, let's tackle something that trips up so many candidates. It's this seemingly small but absolutely critical distinction between pricing a contract and valuing a contract. It's a game changer once you get it.
Think about it like this. On day zero, right at the start, we are pricing the contract. Our goal is to set a forward price that is so perfectly fair that the value of the contract itself is exactly zero. Nobody's ahead, nobody's behind. But the second after that contract is signed, from that moment on, we're in the business of valuing it. As the world changes, we're basically keeping score, figuring out who's winning and who's losing.
So when we set that initial price, it's not quite as simple as taking today's price and just growing it by the risk-free rate. We have to be more realistic. We have to account for any costs or benefits that come from actually holding that asset until delivery. And this whole concept is what we call the cost of carry.
Now, don't let the formula scare you. It's actually super intuitive. All we're doing is taking the spot price, and then we adjust it. We add any cost of carry, things like storage fees, because that makes it more expensive to hold. And we subtract any benefits of carry, things like dividends or interest, because that income makes it cheaper to hold. Costs push the price up, benefits pull it down. Simple as that.
Okay, so let's fast forward. A week has passed since we signed our contract. What's it worth now? Well, the market has moved, and there's a new forward price out there for the same delivery date. The value of our contract is simply the present value of the gap between that new price and the price we originally locked in.
And the logic here is just dead simple. The value of your position today is what we're solving for. It's just the difference between what the market is offering now, the new forward price, and your original locked-in price. Then we just discount that difference back to today's dollars. If the new price is higher, hey, you're winning. If it's lower, you're losing. It's a pure and simple measure of your unrealized profit or loss.
All right, so now we have our master key, this whole no-arbitrage cost of carry framework. So let's use it. Let's see how this one powerful idea unlocks the pricing for all the different forward commitments you're going to see on the exam.
And this is the really beautiful part. You don't have to learn a ton of different models. It's the same engine under the hood for everything. For a stock, the carry benefit is dividends. For a bond, it's the coupons. For a currency, it's the foreign interest rate. You just find the right costs and benefits and plug them into the exact same framework. It's that elegant.
Okay, now for swaps.
I know these can seem really complicated and abstract, but there is an incredibly easy, intuitive way to think about them. An interest rate swap is not one complex thing. It's just two bonds packaged together. That's it.
So let's just break it down. Say you agree to pay a fixed rate in a swap. What have you really done? You've basically promised to make a series of fixed payments, which is exactly what you do when you issue a bond. And if you're receiving a floating rate, well, you're entitled to a stream of floating payments, just like you would be if you owned a floating rate bond.
And once you see it that way, the valuation becomes just incredibly straightforward. The value of the swap is just the value of the bond you're receiving payments from minus the value of the bond you're making payments on. And here's the kicker: a floating rate bond always resets to its par value on a payment date, which makes valuing that side of the trade a piece of cake.
Okay, we've covered a ton of ground here, so let's bring it all home. Let's distill everything down into the absolute must-know core concepts you need to walk away with for reading 37. This is your exam blueprint.
Here they are. Number 1, no arbitrage is king. It's the reason for everything we do. 2, know the difference between pricing at the start, when value is 0, and valuing over time. 3, the forward price is all about the cost of carry. Add costs, subtract benefits. 4, a forward's value is just the discounted difference between the new price and your old price. And finally, 5, think of a swap as a simple portfolio of two bonds. You get these 5 points down, and you have a rock-solid foundation for this whole reading.
So we've totally mastered the world of obligations, right? The you have to do this side of derivatives. But what about the other side? What about instruments that give you the right, but not the obligation to act? Well, that's where things get really interesting. That takes us into the world of contingent claims and options. And that is exactly where we're going next.